London, 1665. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your neighbor is dead. Then another. Then another. Soon, entire families are disappearing behind closed doors. Red crosses appear on houses. The streets become strangely silent, and every cough becomes a reason to fear for your life. This was the Great Plague of London, one of the darkest epidemics in British history. But how did a disease turn one of the world's busiest cities into a place of death?
And why did London finally survive? In the 17th century, London was crowded, dirty, and rapidly expanding. Thousands of people lived packed together in narrow streets. Waste filled the surroundings. Clean water was limited, and people had no understanding of bacteria or viruses. Then, in early 1665, something terrifying began happening. People started dying from a mysterious illness. At first, many Londoners didn't realize how serious it was. But the deaths kept increasing. And then came the summer. By June, the situation was becoming impossible to hide. Every week, the number of deaths climbed higher. Families locked themselves inside. Businesses began closing. And fear spread faster than the disease itself. The official records would eventually report tens of thousands of deaths in London during the epidemic. But behind every number was a person. A mother. A child. A husband. A neighbor. And sometimes, an entire family.
Then, London introduced one of its most frightening measures. When someone in a house was believed to have plague, the entire household could be isolated. The door could be marked with a warning, a red cross, and the words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Imagine seeing that symbol placed on your own home. You knew that leaving could be forbidden, and outside, people knew not to come near you. Doctors desperately searched for answers, but medicine in 1665 was still primitive. There were no antibiotics, no modern laboratory tests, no understanding of germs. Some physicians used treatments that today seem strange or dangerous. Others relied on traditional theories about poisonous air and bodily imbalances. People burned substances, carried herbs, avoided certain places, and prayed. But none of this could explain what was really happening.
The disease was plague, historically associated with the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It could spread through infected fleas, often involving rodents, and could take different clinical forms. But Londoners didn't know any of this. They only knew one terrifying fact. People were getting sick and dying. And because the city was densely populated, the conditions were ideal for a devastating outbreak. As the death toll increased, wealthy Londoners began leaving the city. Those who could afford it escaped to the countryside. But the poor had nowhere to go. They remained trapped in the city. Markets became quieter, streets became emptier, and the sound of death bells became part of everyday life. London was still functioning, but it no longer felt alive. Then came the worst months. The summer of 1665 brought the epidemic to its terrifying peak. Thousands were dying. Burial grounds became overwhelmed. The government tried to control movement and isolate suspected cases. But for ordinary people, every day became a gamble. Would they wake up tomorrow? Would their family survive? Or would another name be added to the weekly death records? And then, something changed. As autumn arrived, temperatures fell. The number of new cases began to decline. The epidemic slowly weakened.
people who had fled began thinking about returning. The city was
exhausted, but it had survived. The Great Plague had killed an enormous number of Londoners, with historical estimates commonly placing the toll at around 100,000 people, though exact figures remain uncertain. That meant a devastating share of London's population was gone. You might think the story ends there. It doesn't. Less than a year later, another catastrophe struck London. In September 1666, a massive fire tore through the city. Thousands of buildings were destroyed. And strangely enough, the fire became part of the story of the plague. It destroyed large sections of London's densely packed urban environment. But historians caution against the simple claim that the fire ended the plague by itself. The epidemic had already been declining. Still, the disaster forced London to rebuild, and that rebuilding would change the city forever. The Great Plague of London wasn't just a story about death. It was a lesson.
a lesson about overcrowding, a lesson about sanitation, a lesson about quarantine, and most importantly, a lesson about how little humans once understood disease. Today, we can identify bacteria under microscopes. We can develop medicines. We can track outbreaks. But in 1665, London had none of those advantages. They had fear, they had uncertainty, and they had one desperate hope: that tomorrow would be better than today. The Great Plague eventually disappeared from London, but its warning remained. Because history has shown us something terrifying. A disease doesn't need to be powerful when the world isn't prepared for it.